How was that?
Yeah. Incredibly insightful. I said like partway through this process, I don't think I see any unrealised potential. Well done. Summarise before the end. It's always a wise move.
So this next tool we're going to use for this experiment is a tool that I usually use in group sessions. This set is actually part of a very specific set called the Lego Serious Play Starter Kit. And the idea is that everybody gets the same kit, and they have very specific pieces which you can see you wouldn't necessarily find in a kid's Lego set. Now, for what we're going to do, it doesn't actually matter. We don't need to have this kit because we're not in a situation where we've got 10 or 15 people around a table. They have to have the same resources available. So for today, I have this kit, but it could be any kit as long as it's not just like.
It's taking every ounce of my energy just to pick this up and play with it now. I want to start building. My son's going to see this and be like, is this what you do for work?
What's great is, as you're saying, it's really hard not to use your hands and not to dive in there. And that's the whole point. So before we go too far into building something, you're going to have to find another challenge.
Okay, so let's look at my relationship with my partner, my intimate relationship.
Okay.
If we look at that, just some... do I need to set more of an intention than that, or can I just hold that relationship in mind and start going with it? Because without having a potential problem in there at the moment, like it's like, what do I focus on? But if there's unrealised potential, like I don't know what I don't know yet. So do I start talking about that relationship and playing? Would that work? Or does there need to be something more specific?
If that's a clear enough goal for you, then that's fine with me. It's not about...
I think in relationships, especially when you've been together for many, many years and you have children and everything else, you can get caught up in different aspects of life and what you're doing and sometimes not really see the situation for what it is or your partner for what they are. I think it's good. I think it's a nice thing to go into. So, as I look at this, like the first thing that strikes me here is there's lots of different pieces. Obviously, like state the obvious, Nick. No, it strikes there's lots of different pieces, and there's lots of ways that I could, like, this couldn't work, and there's lots of ways it could work. And you know, what does kind of work mean? I think that I'm drawn to the thought of workability as I look at this, because there's a lot of things in here that look kind of functional, and I'm driven to create something that's nice and functional. And if I think about my relationship with my partner, it's like we have children, so workability and function is an important aspect of what we do. We need to be able to work together and come together, especially in tough and stressful moments. So that's kind of the first thing. So that's why when I was looking at this, I thought intimate relationships. So I was like, there could be something around here. Because again, I think you can always get caught up in a relationship in just the day-to-day and the frustrations and whatever else. And things slowly become less and less workable until you look back over your shoulder like 6 or 12 months down later. Wow, this is a lot different than what it was. So I don't know if I'm going to get any insights as I go through this, but that's the whole point of play, isn't it? We come into it with the expectation of just trying to make something really functional here. Mm-hmm. Function seems to be my flavour of the day. Okay, so what's going to go into here? This little bowl is nice. Look at this.
It can actually be turned into
a ball.
A ball.
Nice. Putting the heads off people. I don't know why I'm putting their heads in a ball. But I kind of think not knowing why I'm doing stuff is part of the point. It just entertains me.
Yeah.
Okay, so this doesn't want to sit on here, so I'm now thinking that maybe I want to find something different, because as I've got to this point now, this isn't workable. And what there's a little lesson that I can see here immediately. It's like my foundation was not workable. There wasn't clicking together. And if my foundation isn't clicking together, then you can either go on and struggle with it, or you can change your foundation. which is kind of a bigger lesson. I don't know if I'm supposed to be finding lessons, but that's something that comes across quite nicely.
There's no supposed to anything.
What am I doing? So now,
This typically, I mean, this thing will, for example, slip into there. I'm just showing you how the pieces work. I'm not trying to influence what you're doing with them.
No, that's good.
There's also this one. If you want it to be on top, you can put it on this one.
Okay.
If you don't want it to be on the side.
I want it to be on top. Yeah, I want it to be on top. That's good. Thank you.
Everything is possible.
Thank you. I was looking for the functional relationship of the pieces, so thank you for that. So I was trying to figure out.
So you get 3 levels of twisting going on.
3 levels of twisting, yeah. Because I'm kind of, from a visual perspective, is like this foundation is relatively simple, it's solid, it's sturdy. We already changed the foundation because the last one just wasn't working.
This was not good.
It wasn't serving us. And the funny thing about it is if I look at this looks very fancy, ornate, it's big and bombastic, it's sexy, it's see-through, it's like, yeah, look at me, I'm a really big blue block. These are really more casual, they're just there. And it's like, and they're sand coloured as well, which is kind of powerful. But, so it's kind of like the foundation, it feels good to have it simple, it's doing what it's doing, these big bombastic things didn't work. But it's like on the top of here, it's where everything starts to get really complex in life, like multiple spinning things on top of spinning things and things to consider and things moving in different directions. And in the middle of it, there's me and my partner, just like two brains in a washing machine sometimes, being spun around and not really know what's going on, but always in the same space with each other. I want to put you on top, but I don't think you go there. Like, I think that'd be good. These headless dudes are creeping me out. Actually, standing there looking at me is probably worse. I'll tell you what, you can go inside there. There you go. No, I can't see you. Yeah, we can put them in there together.
You can give them replacement heads if you want.
That's the scariest replacement head ever. Just like a square with an eye on it. Like, that's so freaky. Where's the little skeleton head?
Here.
Oh, there he is. Oh, with the top hat. Nice. No, that doesn't make sense. I say it doesn't make sense. Like, it kind of, because this kind of thing does make sense to me as I'm looking at it right now. It's like, what does make sense here, Nick, you know? You've got a one-eyed square head and a skeleton staring at you and your partner's heads rotating around in a ball. It's interesting because it obviously looks like it makes absolutely no sense to anybody else. But this is like making a huge amount of sense to me.
Is it? Oh, okay.
It really is making a huge amount of sense to me. Like, as I'm putting these things in,
Yeah.
it's it looks completely random and obscure, but it kind of really isn't to me.
Okay, well that's the main thing. Ah, you found a place for it.
Well, yeah, that was the first place I saw it, but at that point in time, I wasn't looking at this in the same way.
Right.
Like, I still don't know if it should be there or not. But the funny thing is, I'm kind of seeing things like, I had to wipe my eyes. Am I? Like, what is this? No, but the interesting thing is I'm seeing things right now that, like this explains a lot. You know, they say like a picture speaks 1,000 words. Like, I'm looking at this now, and again, I could probably sit here talking about 30 minutes about all these different aspects and what they mean and everything else. Okay. Let me talk you through it. Is that the next part, or how do we?
For example, if you want to.
Yeah, I feel like I do. So, as I said, there was the thing about the base, you know, and that was interesting. Just a little thing of, you know, sometimes we set foundations and we just think that that's the way it is because they've been set, and it was like, if your first step on a journey is the wrong one, you're going in the wrong direction. So it's kind of like changing that earlier was a little bit, for there. This represents the two heads inside the ball, represent my partner and I. The ball represents the kind of, the bubble, if you like, that you live in as a couple. And this kind of, the motion of going around in a circle represents the fact that it can sometimes be like a whirlwind. You can be caught up in these kind of situations. I really want to attach this ladder
Okay.
to here, but no. The ladder doesn't go there, does it? Of course it doesn't. The ladder goes here.
But then you can't turn anymore.
The ladder going here. So this represents my partner and I. Now, if we work together, then amazing things grow and flourish from the bubble. But that doesn't mean we can't work together. You know, either one of us can leave, and we can either leave in a productive and fashionable way and go and find treasure in other locations, or we can leave in a non-destructive way, and that's where there's a destructive way. That's where there's a noose there, because you know, if intimate relationships end in bad ways, it feels like death. It's grieving. So this represents the two different exit points that you can have from a potential relationship. These two scary, ghoulish characters down here kind of represent the shadow self, or the shadow community, or just the darker side of life, and the fact that if you go looking for them, you can always find bad things that are looking straight at you. And you know, the connection here is that these two being connected and intertwined with stuff is that normally these bad things are imbued and intertwined with kind of everything we do. So unless you're aware that they're there, you could quite easily stumble into them and, you know, lead to wherever. And this red thing, I just wanted to use it. So it doesn't really have that much of a meaning. I just kind of think it completed the picture. So yeah, that's kind of, as I was building it, I was kind of trying to build a visual representation of kind of the way that I see a relationship. And it doesn't necessarily have to be me and my partner. You know, this could, in my mind, represent a relationship between any person and a partner, because that's kind of, this is, the way I just described it is kind of the way that I see relationships.
Okay. Now, you went into this with a goal.
Yes.
Which was?
Which was to see if there's any unrealized potential within the relationship. I don't think I found unrealized potential in this moment. Again, I've finished now, so it's like these things take a while to sink in and process. But as I sit here now, it's more clarity, because I can kind of, in that snapshot, I can see the way that I perceive relationships and the way that I see relationships. And like, if you say to somebody, how do you see intimate relationships? I mean, that's a conversation that can go on for a long time. And you probably still won't understand the way they see intimate relationships at the end of it. And I could ask myself that question and sit there, waffle on for ages, and be more confused at the end than when I started. So this is kind of cool, because it's like I see everything in the same place at the same time. Because that's how everything always is anyway. It's always in the same place at the same time. It's just we see it in different things. Like when you watch a movie, if you watch a movie in the deck, they're all there at the same time. But to you to go through the journey, you have to watch it in its stages, and you have to. And it kind of feels the same with this. Like, so to look at it like this is like kind of, I'm looking at a snapshot of the whole movie, if you know what I mean. It's given me a complete understanding without having to go through and work it out as you go through. So more, for me, it's like about clarity. I kind of like this image. I want to take a picture of this because I think it represents a lot of different things at the same time. And I think it also represents the opportunity for beauty, which is obviously the growth. So the growth represents any kind of growth, whether that's, children or just mutual growth through cultivation of each other's interests and loves or whatever that may be. So yeah, so maybe no unrealized potential in this moment, but increased clarity. It's kind of like symbols, you look at the symbol of this guy down here and this guy here. So this guy down here is like the ghoul, he's got the skeleton face, he's scary, that represents the scary side of life and scary people and everything else. This guy over here has one eye, so he's not really seeing things, he has a lower level of awareness, he only sees half the picture. And again, people like that can be dangerous in different ways. So it's like I can look at this and this describes a huge amount of danger, this describes a huge amount of danger, the fact they're connected and So I've got clarity on the way that I see things. Now, I wouldn't have described this to you, obviously. If you'd have said, what do I think about relationships? I probably, like I said, would have talked for a long time and not been any clearer on what I think about them, or I would have given you some stock answers based upon what's kind of normal. Exactly. But like something that was insightful for me here, in fact, was the exit strategy. And that's not to say that I'm looking for an exit strategy or I want an exit strategy, but it's like in anything, the law of impermanence states that nothing is permanent. Everything will end. Every relationship you have will end. Everything will end. Nice positive note there, but it will. It's what it is. But again, what the caterpillar calls death, everyone else calls a butterfly. So it's just the process of transmutation of energy, if you like. And this exit strategy here, I think is telling, because there's either a sensible descent where you leave safe, you avoid the pitfalls and dangers of these guys down here, and you arrive at other treasure. It's not to say that that's kind of the end. It's not to say, and sometimes you see it through the perspective of the caterpillar. Like, oh, this is the end. I can't imagine anything beyond this, because you know nothing else. Mm-hmm. But I believe if there's respect and one helps the other climb down, or you both help each other, then there's gold to be found there. But so many people take the noose or just jump off onto the bad guys, and, it's there. So in terms of the exit strategy, that's nice clarity. Because if I were in this situation and you're caught up in the moment, it's like you can't see the ladder. Mm. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't mean the ladder isn't there. You can't see the ladder. The only way to get out of this is to take the horrible way out. So that's insightful for me. The fact that there is always a ladder. No matter what, there is always a ladder. There's always a good way to draw a conclusion with stuff. We know that everything ends, we know the law of impermanence, but that doesn't mean it has to end abruptly with people suffering. There's always a ladder. Yeah. Do you know what's interesting as well? Is the conversation that goes around this is where the insight comes, I find. Like if I was sitting there playing with this on my own, then there would definitely be some kind of, oh, that's quite cool clarity. Mm. But like a few minutes ago, I was like, I've got some clarity, but I didn't feel like there was an insight. Now, and we talk about unrealized potential, the insight, there's always a ladder, kind of gives you the unrealized potential that you find is a level of freedom. Because if you take away the ladder, which I won't do because I don't want to break my model, but if you take away the ladder, we get the point. If you take away the ladder, then the end of that relationship is like the end of everything for a lot of people. It is what it is. Or that relationship can't end because the alternative is so very negative that there's no point doing it. But the understanding and the awareness that there is always a ladder that leads you to the treasure. And whether that treasure with another person or just with the freedom of leaving that situation without pain, there's a huge amount of unrealized potential. The potential to actually make decisions based upon what's right rather than decisions based upon what you're scared of falling into. It's nice and profound.
And the longer we sit here, the deeper it'll get.
I might need some armbands in a minute. We're going pretty deep. But yeah, I think that's a powerful one. I think you're right. I think if I sat here for longer, I think they'd get deeper. But I think that
I'm not sort of
trying
to push that.
I know that wasn't. Yeah. But I think as I sit here, I think that realization is infinitely powerful. I think it's the kind of realization which, if it was like a standard awareness that people had, then just the entire world would be a much, much happier place. And when you kind of think about it, that's a good awareness then. An awareness that, if applied universally, would make everyone infinitely more happy is probably a good awareness. So I like that awareness. And I kind of don't want to leave that from this moment. I'm liking sitting in that awareness. It's nice.
The great thing with Lego as well is that you're looking at it from where you're sitting now. But especially when you have bigger models, but even with this, you know, the thing is it's 3D. And you can start turning it around, you know, and looking at it from different angles. And as you do that, sometimes you see different things.
Yeah, and like immediately I'm like, I can't see the treasure anymore. So depending on the perspective, again.
Now it's just a big black box that probably looks pretty...
Yeah, so from this perspective, there is no treasure. You either go into a big black box which looks like a prison. It looks like kind of where Rapunzel was kept by her father. Like, it doesn't look very friendly. And it's dark and it's dingy, and so your only way out is come down into some kind of prison-like situation, death, or stay as you are spinning around in the washing machine. Let's turn it around again. I think from this perspective, now I can't see the noose. So from this, but I also can't see the treasure so much. I can see a little bit of it poking out. So from this perspective, it's kind of like, well, I can leave, there's probably not much benefit. We're talking about exit strategy again. This is all theoretical, FYI. So I can leave, but there's not much treasure at the end of that, isn't there? There's kind of no real benefit for that. No, I can jump, nothing bad's going to happen. So in this situation, from this perspective, there's no benefit in taking the ladder, because the ladder leads me to a prison and I can't see any treasure in it. But also can't see the noose, so there's not really that much of a danger if I just jump. And also the pillar in the middle is blocking the ghoul, so I can't see the ghouls down there, and I can't see that the one-eyed man's only got one eye. So the danger is basically completely hidden from me from this perspective, as is the treasure. So it completely changes the decision that you'd be able to make, because the options are now, from this perspective, completely different.
Do you want to turn it a bit more?
I'm scared to, but let's do this. Okay, so from this perspective again, I can't see the ladder or the treasure. But what's interesting is the pillar is blocking the middle part of the ladder, so I can just see the two edges of the ladder. Now that, if I didn't know it was a ladder, I might not be able to see that it was a ladder from this perspective. That also covers the treasure, but I can see like the outline of a black box and maybe a little sparkle there on the edge of the treasure. And from this perspective, it feels like confusion. Like, what is that? There's something there. It looks like it might be good, but I can't tell. What I do know is there's a noose there and there's these two really damn scary guys down there. I better stay up here. So from this perspective, I'm not leaving the bubble, regardless of what's happening in the bubble. Because from this perspective, it's either bad, the ghouls at the bottom or the noose, or the unknown. So from this perspective, it's scary and confusing.
Have you found any symbol for that red thing in the meantime?
No, there's nothing coming through, but it feels like it belongs there. So there's nothing coming through. Go on, what were you about to say?
Well, no, I mean, I don't want to feed into it.
No, let me finish what I was about to say then, so that we know there's no projection. Yeah, because it's your model somewhere. No, just so we know there's no projections. I'll say my bit, and then, because I want to hear what you have to say about it. My point was going to be that, for me, it feels like it fits there and it should be there. The use isn't obvious for me at the moment, but I know it should be there. So for me in this moment, it's kind of representing the things that are present and have their place, but I don't understand. So it kind of represents the big unknown. Yeah, is that where you were going?
Well, that's what I was sort of hearing. That's what I was picking up on.
I see.
That you don't know what it is, but it's there. It's got to be there. Well,
that's what I was saying without saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least
that's profound. That little red bit of plastic is like insanely profound.
I know, but it's funny how, even when you think, it doesn't mean anything, it has no point of view, but it...
I've got to say, when you said a moment ago about turning it round, I thought, okay, I'm going to see a couple of different bits. I didn't realise the actual massive shift in the whole conceptual understanding of what I'm looking at. And when you consider this is relationships, we've gone through 4 different sides of a rudimentary model here. And that's 4 sides. In the spectrum of human emotion and human variability and everything else, it's like there's so many more than 4 sides. There's so many perspectives that just don't let you see the bigger picture and don't let you see the whole. And I guess that's a learning that I would take from this is that you can't make your judgment on one perspective because you just don't have the whole picture. Especially when it's something as complex as this, where there's so many different elements that are involved. You have to take the time and invest the time to look at the different perspectives and kind of get to understand them, and then you can make your decision. You know, trying to decide based upon one perspective is only going to give you part of the story. Wow. Wow. The last thing I built with Lego was the Millennium Falcon with my son. Like, and it's just like, it was super fun, but a lot less profound than this, I have to say. Yeah. And you know what's funny as well?
That's funny.
Is I said a minute ago, let's leave this out because I'm sure I'm going to get more perspective. And I do still want to play that game because I don't know where that's going to go. But I kind of feel like the process that you just took me through of turning that around and gaining the different perspectives is like, and I'm not going to just assume this is the way, we'll still look at it another time or later or whatever, but that's just, when I was looking at it from one side, I was very conscious of the fact, although I didn't know this, or I was aware unconsciously, that doesn't make sense, I was like, there was an awareness at some level that I was only getting one side of the story. That's why I was like, I need to leave it over there and come back to it, because there was a feeling that I wasn't getting it. And now we've spun it, I've looked at it from all perspectives, I'm like, no, I get it now. I kind of don't think I'm going to take much more from that later. Of course we will still look at it, but just the introduction of other perspectives and the richness of understanding. I am tempted to do one more thing.
Yeah.
That's this.
Yeah.
Because as I look at it from this perspective, I can see everything other than the inside of the bubble. I can just see the bubble and see the growth coming through it. And the little tree on top actually from this side looks like a pine cone from the top, which is interesting. It's interesting because I can see everything and I can't see the people inside. And I feel like that means something to me. I don't want to force what it means to me, so I just kind of want to sit with it for a moment, if that's okay. But it feels like it does. It kind of feels like on some level, if you don't make it all about you, it just becomes about the growth and what you can create. So if you're not constantly looking at yourself and thinking it's about us in here and getting caught up with the fact that you're in this like little washing machine style ball thing, then you can just kind of let the growth take over. And then that becomes, because from my perspective here, the growth is the entire relationship. You know, there's stuff around it which if you're not in the growth is kind of the danger and everything else, but the growth has replaced the individuals. It's become symbiotic, like 2 seeds have become 1 plant. So yeah. I don't know what to say about that, I'll be honest. Like I'm, as I keep saying in these moments, a little bit taken aback. Yeah, and I definitely want to keep the model out now as well. Because I said a minute ago, I'm not sure I can learn more. I just learned some more by looking from the other angle. So, yes. I'm kind of nervous that you're now going to ask me to do something else with it that's going to make me go, to another level. What are you doing to me?
No, just, how was that?
Yeah. Insightful. I need new words here. Yes, incredibly insightful. I said like partway through this process, I don't think I see any unrealised potential. Well done, summarise before the end. It's always a wise move. but there's a ridiculous amount of unrealised potential in what I've just seen. And the funny thing was that when I was looking at it from, when I was looking at it from these perspectives, from the same level, but just from different perspectives at the same level, I was seeing, it was all about the exit strategy. And it was about the aversion of danger, mostly. As soon as I looked at it from this level, the danger kind of seemed irrelevant. It was just all about growth and all about development. And it's kind of like from this level, when it's all about the individuals, you're having to take care of all of this and be aware of it and be conscious of all of this. And it's very much part of what's going on. As soon as you kind of remove the individual from it and you make it about the two of you and you're coming together and the oneness and growth and it coming through, everything else just falls into the distance. You know, so it's like you can take these different perspectives, but if you really want to make the most of that relationship, you need to elevate your perspective. You need to heighten your perspective and take a look at it from that way, from a growth-led situation. Gosh, I need to stop. This rabbit hole gets deeper and deeper. I'm going to wake up at like 3 a.m. and go, where's that Lego?
I'll leave them over here for tonight. Yeah. Good place to stop?
Yeah, like I would say a dizzying place to stop, because intimate relationships is a fundamental part of it. It's one of the things that we all engage in at some point in our lives. Well, 99.9% engage in at some point in our lives. And it's like a cornerstone of your understanding of reality. It's a really fundamental piece. And in going through this, it's shaken that to a certain degree. It's introduced new thoughts, new ideas, new ways of looking at things, literally and figuratively. But so there's kind of this, again, the recalibration of, okay, things are a bit different now, my awareness is a bit different now, and it's going to recalibrate. And what I think might be even quite useful is, this has been a really, really powerful one. And it may be the subject, it may be the fact that you've just introduced me to, or the guidance that you provided has allowed me to find 5 different fresh perspectives on relationships in under 5 minutes. I mean, and not just find them. No, that's not it. Not be shown them, because you can go, oh, this perspective, that perspective. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. But like, if I've just found the perspective myself, like I did then, that's my realization, that's my understanding. I have, not to say other people aren't going to get it, but there's ownership in that. It means something. So now I'm kind of in this position where I've just had these 5 new perspectives brought into this massively fundamental part of my psyche, and I'm like, what's going on here? Big download moment. So I think what might be useful is, even if we kind of revisit this at a separate time, just to kind of see how these sink in, because I have a massive, massive, massive feeling that there's going to be a lot more insight that comes off the back of this one. If you're happy to do that.
Always happy to do that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
I think that's it for today.
My jaw is shaking. I'm sweating and my jaw is shaking. Like, not like I'm like upset or anything. I'm just like, there's a seismic shift. There's a shift that's happened there.
For the making of.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.